Are you struggling to regain sustainability in your life and create a positive life stance? If so, listen in as courageous women share their empowering struggle of how they came through the trenches to restart and recreate a victorious life worth living. They took their power back. Learn the secrets of how they did it, and you can too. Welcome to the Real Heart Talk podcast and 360 Network for Women. And here's your host, Pamela Duran.
Welcome, Real Heart Talk listeners. You are enough. We have a wonderful guest with us tonight, and I am excited to introduce Linda Plunkett, and she is from North Carolina. She has a wonderful story of surviving brain surgery and fibromyalgia, and she has 2 books. She's an author. Living a Positive Life in a Negative World and the Supernatural Rescue. And I can't wait to hear about that. So tell us a little more about yourself, Linda. Welcome to the show.
Okay. I'm just I consider myself just a regular person. I'm married. I'm the mom of 2 grown boys. And for 20 years, I had a counseling practice where I helped people and really, enjoyed what I was doing. And then, life can change very suddenly. I was very healthy. I competed in ballroom dancing, played golf, just enjoyed a good social life and good spiritual life with God, had good friends. And then all of a sudden things changed very suddenly. And you can imagine, to my amazement, when a doctor called me on the phone and said, "I'm sorry to tell you this, but you have a brain tumor and it's the size of a tennis ball in your frontal lobe." And I was in shock because I really had no pain, no symptoms. People around me suggested my behavior was a little different than normal, but my husband, he didn't notice any difference. I think sometimes husbands are the last ones to notice. But it was devastating because of my behavioral problems. They said it was a form of a seizure. And what that meant, although not cancerous, a seizure can kill you very quickly. And so you have to address it. You just can't pretend it's not there. And I always laugh, when I tell this part of the story, because I have a PhD in psychology. And I really just wanted to be in denial, like this really isn't happening. But being a psychologist, I had to deal with it was reality, and I had to do something about it. Which at that point in time, it was to find a brain doctor to open my head up, to cut my head open from ear to ear, and remove the tumor. So that was the first really major crises. And the first book, Supernatural Rescue, stems around the brain surgery, the aftermath, the supernatural rescue, and the recovery, which really, if you believe in miracles, was a miracle. A lot of people read the book and they say you shouldn't be here. And I agree, but it was devastating. The after effects, feeling God had left me. It was great that he rescued me, pulled me back into my body. But then a couple months later, Mayo Clinic said, "There's nothing we can do for you." And I couldn't work. I could hardly walk. I couldn't focus or solve problems. It was extremely difficult. And I just didn't even know where to begin. I had no skills. And so it was a choice at that point. What are you going to do when a major medical institution says there's nothing we can do to help you? You can either give up, or in my case, I said, there's got to be a reason I'm alive and I've got to find solutions. And so most of the remainder of that year was trying to find solutions just to recover and to survive that.
Wow. So I want to back up just a minute. What made you go to the doctor? What were you feeling weird that they even found the tumor? What happened that you went to the doctor?
Well, I went out to lunch one day with a friend and my son. And my friend I'd known for many, many years. And of course, my son, we're very intimate. And we were having lunch. And all they really said is, "Mom, you're not acting the same. You're behaving differently. And this doesn't make sense, some of the things you're saying." And
Mm.
they didn't really give me a lot of specifics, but when I called my doctor, she said, it's probably nothing, but you really should probably have an MRI just in case. And so
Mm.
then that's when they spotted the gigantic tumor. But no, my husband hadn't noticed anything. I really didn't have headaches or, you'd think if you have a gigantic tumor in your frontal lobe, you
You
would
might would
feel
feel
it.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really did not. I really did not. And so it was a total shock and literally turned my life upside down.
Wow. I can't imagine. I know that you said, so you had the surgery and that was 10 years ago?
Yes, that was the end of 2012. So I guess going on about 11 years now. And 2013, that was a very, very, very difficult year for me. There again, I couldn't even walk. I couldn't reason. I couldn't focus. Even, after God had rescued me and I felt I was back connected to my body again, it was like I cried. I had pain then. I had tremendous pain and cried because I didn't know what to do and no one seemed to be able to help me. And so that was
Wow.
extremely devastating, depressing,
Did you have
and
an, I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. Go on ahead.
I was just going to say, did you have an outer body experience? I mean, I
In a
haven't
way,
read your book.
yes. Yes. In a way, I did because when I woke up from the surgery, I can't explain it. I've had faith my whole lifetime. But for whatever reason, I just felt like God wasn't there anymore. I think because I was so empty and felt so lost. And I just felt like He had just totally abandoned me. And within 10 days after the surgery, it was really ironic because it was Christmas Eve of all times that this would happen. But I felt, and I was sleeping on the couch in the living room because I could not even walk up the stairs to my bedroom. So I was sleeping on the living room couch. And I felt, and this is hard to explain if it's never happened to you, but my spirit was drifting in and out of my body. And it was trying to separate and was getting closer and closer to the front door of my home. And literally, I was at the front door and ready to go out the front door. And this gigantic hand came out, which I believe was the hand of God, and pulled me back into my body. Immediately, I knew God was there. But I obviously, was just mystified and in awe of it. And, some people have said, well, maybe, your brain was messed up. It didn't happen. But I have a witness, which it was shocking to me. My husband upstairs in the bedroom saw a hand in thin air.
Oh, wow.
And so he really validated my story of that's what happened. And so then I knew, it was like, God, you're back. So now what?
Yeah.
Now what? Thank you for being back, putting me back in my body. I guess that's where I'm supposed to be. Although at that point, I really didn't want to be there. But I had to feel like there was something coming, like a plan of some sorts, and things hopefully would change.
Mhm. Well, you do have a spirit and it's in a body, and we have a soul, and our soul is our mind, our heart, our emotions, our will, and emotions. So,
Exactly.
that is the thing. I remember listening to Dr. Jerry Savelle, and I love listening to him when he had his stroke. And Kenneth Copeland came to pray over him, and they were telling him that he prayed in the spirits, that even though he couldn't speak, he couldn't hear, couldn't respond, he was speaking in the spirits language. He was
Right.
laying there. And I loved his question that he asked God. He said, God, how could that be when, they said that he was brain dead because of the stroke? He said, well, your spirit is not connected to your brain.
That's very true. That's very true.
I was
And
like, wow.
I had a second supernatural experience later in that year that had never happened to me before. But no, I would definitely say that. And sometimes when you're at your lowest point, for me, when I cried out to God, I mean, things got much worse later that year. I really didn't get well. I developed fibromyalgia. I had pain all over my body. I couldn't sleep. And I still couldn't go back to work. Wanted to help people again as a counselor. I couldn't do anything. But my father was up in Ohio and he needed help. And I thought, at least I can go up and help Dad. with the basics. And so I was up with my dad in Ohio, and I had this experience in that I was trying to do something with him, like with an electrical plug or electrical situation. I got horrible shock. And I remember going out in the garage and just crying out to God, God, why am I going through this? And why didn't you let me die when I had that brain surgery, or when my body was trying to separate from my spirit? Why didn't you let me die? I didn't want my dad to hear me, but so I went out, shut the door, but I just cried out to God. And, as a counselor before, I might have said, oh, you shouldn't get angry at God. But now I would change my opinion of that, because when I got really angry and I literally yelled at God, God, why? And why is this? Why am I going through this? That night, I was upstairs sleeping in my mom's bedroom, and she passed away a few years before that. And suddenly, I'm laying there and I see a blue light come through the ceiling. And at first I'm thinking, I'm asleep. But then I realized I'm not asleep. I'm awake. But a blue light streamed through the top, going all the way through the roof of the house and into the sky. And on the other side, there was a figure there. And to this day, I want to believe it was an angel, but I don't know. It could have been Jesus. It could have been my mother, but it was blurry. But, the amazing thing about that, the figure did not say anything. However, I knew when I saw the figure was there to give me hope. And I was going to make it. I knew that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And like you say, the spiritual side is completely different. There was no reason that I should have thought that. But I just immediately knew that message was for me and that I was going to somehow make it.
Yes, the message of hope. We always have hope. God is there. And I can tell you're a woman of faith. You have great faith. And he has brought you through. I've got to get your book and read it, The Supernatural Rescue, because people that have not experienced, and I have experienced something a little similar, but people that have not experienced it, they need to just grasp hold of your faith. If they don't have hope today, and know that there is a God and they have hope, there is help for them, and they do have to seek it. And especially if you're at your lowest point, I can definitely relate to that, and not feeling God, but you just keep on praying, right? Because we know those prayers, the Bible is faithful, those promises are faithful, and we can stand on that.
Well, and the other thing I really believe, I've gone through so much more in the last 10 years. And when I tell people it's more difficult than what happened in the first book, people that know me know what I've been through. But I would say it was about the 8th month after my brain surgery, I developed fibromyalgia, and I started having pain all over my body, and I couldn't sleep. And I literally have been fighting that now for 10 years. But God has given me ways. Traditional medicine has not helped, but different ways, knowledge about how to eat, how to take care of my health, how to deal with my own negative emotions and my own disconnects with God. And, people said to me, Linda, you're doing so well. Up until just recently, I've actually been competing in ballroom dancing and did that for 5 years. But people say, Linda, we know you have fibromyalgia. How are you doing so well? So last year, I must have cried for 6 months, but I put it all in writing, because I had to relive all that pain, which has been so difficult. Plus, my 18-year-old kitty died. So I was grieving that. But God just said, write a chapter on grieving. So I added another chapter. But this book is about body, soul, and spirit, how to come back from pain and suffering when doctors are maybe not giving you any answers, when you're not finding solutions. God had to help me really and strengthen me to find my own way. And I found a lot of things, alternative medicine, and even, he's still revealing things that were not in the book that I wrote last spring, but things that really have helped me tremendously reduce my pain. But to live with fibromyalgia is one of those things, there's no cure. And so you deal with it and you live with it and you find ways to handle it. And for me, that was changing how I eat, realizing foods cause inflammation, learning about my diet, and how do I exercise? How do I handle my daily routine? And there again, how do I handle my own emotions, dealing with stress and negativity, and trying to persevere through this. And perseverance is a big topic. And you know what I tell people? We don't know a lot of times when we're going through things. And you know what? God waited a long time to answer some of those prayers. And I even said, why God and why? And what have I done? And I turned around and tried to blame myself. My husband said, you didn't do anything wrong. But you know, we go through many things. The time we're going through, we have no understanding. But you know, what I tell people now is just persevere, use tools to persevere. I have a big chapter on perseverance in this book because we don't always know why, but you know, one day you will. And now I know the reason I've been through this is so I can help other people and that my pain is someone else's gain. But when I was going through that, it made no sense. It made no sense why I didn't seem to be getting better, why God was not answering my prayers. At the time, I thought he should. And you know, God has a different timetable, and God has different goals. And I mean, his thoughts and ways are so much higher than ours. And so we can't begin to understand. But I realize now through public speaking and book signings now, since the new book has come out, there's so many people that my story resonates with because they too have been through either emotional, physical, spiritual pain, or all of the above. And sometimes there's not answers. And it's difficult. It's very difficult to get through that. And we need each other. We really do need each other.
Yes, we do, because it builds that momentum. It builds that hope and encouragement. We're not suffering alone. We're not going through this alone. Somebody has went through this and made it. You know, what did they do? What can I use from what they did to help me? And I wanted to say one thing about your fibromyalgia. Can you tell us what that is exactly for our listeners? What is that?
It's very interesting because this year when I researched the topic again, I had researched it when I wrote the first book in 2016 because I had just been really diagnosed with it at the end of that book. But this year I researched it again. You know, doctors cannot agree on a definition or a treatment. And this is part of the problem why you need to think about alternative medicine and other ways to treat yourself. They cannot agree. But one commonality that seems to be a lot of us, we talk to each other about our own symptoms and what we've been through, is if you have any type of trauma to your brain or your nervous system. For me, it was an almost 8-hour brain surgery. And but the trauma, it doesn't unveil itself immediately, but it could be years later. It could be a physical accident or a disease that's caused a trauma, either to the brain or your nervous system. But, and there again, often involves pain that doctors don't seem to be able to treat. Many times medications are very temporary and there's bad side effects. And I experienced that, but they mean well, but many doctors don't have the training to treat it. And we really have to look to alternative medicine and really just, for me, I had to do a tremendous amount of research because I wanted to feel better. I believe that God still had a good plan, but I was not functioning well. And, you know, the scary part of when you have a lot of pain and it's not treated well is you don't sleep at night. At least in my case, I could not sleep. And then it's this horrible cycle of pain and more lack of sleep. And it changes who you are. I did a book signing recently, and the lady, one of the ladies that came to the signing said there had been 2 suicides on her street in the last 6 months. But when you get to that point, I'll tell you what happened to me. And I never thought in a million years, because I worked to have good self-esteem, that I would ever feel this way. But it changed me and I became a very ugly person and I started to hate myself. And I realized I was not nice to be around. When you don't sleep and you have pain all the time, it changes you. But you start to have self-hatred. And then when the doctors haven't helped and you don't know what to do about it, I really believe that's when it becomes dangerous for some people to want to take their own life. And I'm so glad that, you know, I did have God and I did have the hope that somehow, I didn't know how, but I was alive for a reason and I was going to get through it. But not everyone has that hope. And so, you know, when I talk to people, I tell them, you need to take care of your body. You need to take care of your soul, your mind, will, and emotions. But having that spiritual relationship with God gives you a whole nother dimension. And I can't tell you, there were times, I don't know how I got through the day, but I know it was with God, because I know that I couldn't do it on my own. I was like an empty
Right.
vessel. I was empty, and the only way I got through that day was knowing that I had God to get me through it.
Mhm. Yes, I know there's a lot of people listening that they may be in that same place right now, thinking helpless or hopeless, but we can share our story with them. And you're sharing your story with them of hope and how you came back, how you took your power back. And doing the research for fibromyalgia, what are some things that you can share if somebody has that today that helped you from a natural, maybe non-medication standpoint?
Well, when I started to research diet, I realized, and this was totally unknown to me, and I feel like I was fairly conscious of, of health and doing what I felt were the right things for my body, but many foods cause inflammation to your body. And I know some people are not going to want to hear this. I've told people, and they say, oh, I could never change that. But if you can reduce your sugar intake, and sugar causes inflammation. And it's not just sugar, like adding sugar to your food, but many foods have hidden sugar. Things like alcohol and breads turn into sugar, pasta can turn into sugar. But really look at your diet, and you can start by not adding sugar. I use like a sweetener that's a natural sweetener that's from a vegetable. We have to be careful because artificial additives and artificial ingredients can also cause physical problems in your body. So you really have to look at everything you're doing. And people, a lot of people say, oh, go gluten free or do this diet or that diet. But for me, it was understanding. I know, okay, I stay away from desserts. I might have a little bit of dark chocolate once in a while that's low in sugar. Or, okay, I went on a cruise. I confess. I had a few desserts, but I will suffer if I have an abundance, say I have sugar 3 days in a row that I'm not used to, or I eat foods I know myself that I don't feel well. Later, I'm going to suffer, and there's going to be a consequence. So for a lot of people, that doesn't mean reducing everything from your body, but if you a lot of times reduce even some of it, you will feel better. You will feel better. You will think clearly. You will also have less chance of diabetes or other problems that are caused by sugar in your body. And I'm not saying, well, the sugar is just the root of all evil. It's not, but I think it's about moderation and examining your own your own physical situation. The bad thing for me after the brain surgery, they put me on a lot of steroids. And I tell a joke when I speak for
Mhm.
groups. This is very true. I ate 9 donuts in one night. And
Oh
my
my
husband went out and bought a box of donuts. And the next morning, there were only 3 left. And I said, how many did you eat? And he said, I didn't have any. One night, I ate 9, but I was on steroids. And my heart goes out to anyone
God.
who has to take steroids because you crave sugar and you crave salt. So if you're on that type of a medication, you may have to talk to your doctor about it first. But I gained almost 50 pounds. And that was another reason I was very depressed in the aftermath of the surgery. I never had weighed 50 pounds more, in my life. I'd never been 50 pounds overweight. And I had to lose that weight, and I had to find ways to get better. And I do have a section of the book how you can examine your physical self as to what kind of exercise you should be doing, but that anything you can do, even if it's walking, if you're paralyzed and you can't walk, if you can do upper body, whatever you can do will help your body immensely. And when I did research, there's a chapter on the brain because my brain was messed up for so long. And I discovered that what I was already doing, which was ballroom dancing, is one of the most helpful things to your brain. And in some cases has been shown to reverse Alzheimer's because you're
Wow.
using your body and you're using your mind together. And if you're partner dancing, you have to learn to adjust to a partner. And you know what I tell people? You don't have to spend a lot of money. The costs have gone up. I've quit the major part of my competitive dancing because the costs have just gone up too high. But you can take classes, you can go to group classes and pay maybe $15 or $20 or even maybe 10 or 5, depending where you live. And you can learn from the beginning And anything you learn will help you. It will help you mentally. And if you're able to do a little bit physically, it will help you as well. But do what you feel you can do. And it's when we just give up and we stop, our bodies give up too. And that's scary. If you quit something altogether that you're able to do, and I mean, I just turned 70 this year. And so I noticed the changes.
Congratulations. You look
I'm
fabulous.
blessed. I have good genes, and my father lived to be 100, my mother 87. So maybe I'll live a little while longer. But a lot of people I've noticed, and this is not being judgmental, but it's very easy to give up and quit the things you used to do that maybe you could still do. You're tired or you have a little bit of pain, but I know sometimes you've got to fight through a little bit of that just to be healthier and to give your body what it needs. And sometimes our body just needs a little bit more, even if it means fighting through a little bit of pain to do it.
No, I love that. And the book that you're talking about is Living a Positive Life in a Negative World.
Yes. And that book just came out and it is available. Gosh, I was shocked though. I went on Amazon and I realized it's being back ordered now. So apparently it's selling very well. But it is available at Barnes and Noble. Some stores have it in stock. And I did a book signing a couple days ago in Greenville, South Carolina, which was very exciting. But that book, they can get the book in if they don't have it in the store. The first book, I have copies myself, but I was going to tell you, I know you said you were interested in reading the first book. I can get you a copy, a personal copy, and send that to you. I do inspirational speaking for groups, and I'm happy to bring that book with me as well. But unfortunately, it's down to the last couple hundred copies. And so unless you read it online or get a used copy, you'd have to get that book from me. I'm hoping in time to republish it, but right now I'm promoting the second book and I haven't had a chance to do that.
That is wonderful. I love that. No, I would definitely love a signed copy.
I would be happy to give you that. And if you give me the information, I'd be happy to put that in the mail to you. And yeah, it's a story about a miracle, truly a miracle. And, I'm amazed, even people that aren't necessarily, say, of the Christian faith, the people I talk to, they believe in miracles. And that's great news because that shows there is a power which many of us believe is God, who's out there that is beyond ourselves. And when we're at the end of ourselves, he's there. And that can give everybody hope. And, I've had people that I've known that have not been given a chance to have a long life, that they made a few changes and now they're still alive. And so I really think there's a lot of hope too. If your doctor tells you, like in my case, we can't help you, there's nothing we can do, I would just say to people, please don't give up. Look into alternative medicine. Go onto online. Now, I will tell you, not everything online is true. Be very careful and try to do a little research. But for example, I've had acupuncture. That's not in the book, but I have gotten some very good tips from acupuncturists to help friends that are going through cancer, and their cancer's really turned around. And that's very exciting. And in their case, it's when other methods of treatment did not help them. So I think we have to open up our minds to, mainline medicine is good, but there are other types of medicine and knowledge that you can obtain that, whatever, don't give up. Just don't give up. Just keep fighting. And, it is sometimes not easy. I will say that it's not easy, but the rewards of doing that many times may mean the difference between you having a good life and not having a good life.
No, I agree. You just have to keep pushing forward, keep moving, and realize even a little bitty baby step progress is progress in the right direction. And you were talking about, and we're supposed to do miracles greater than what Jesus did. And he did great miracles. So I don't think the world has honestly seen the great miracles that are lying ahead of us. I believe that there are more great things and great miracles that are coming. Now, did you have a comment? And then I want to ask you another question.
No, you go right ahead.
Okay. So I was thinking about your profession and that you were a PhD in psychology and you were helping people all the time. So I mean, do you think that had anything to do with your tumor, or did you have an outlet during all that time? I mean, I know that had to be a lot of pressure being in those
Well, yeah,
time.
not really, because for me it was like a gift. I did spiritual counseling as well as, mental health. But honestly, it wasn't. But I'll tell you, and I have no proof that my tumor started there, but I did do a mission trip to North China, and I realized there was very, very strong, um, I guess you'd say, spiritual resistance or a battle between the good and evil. And, it's very interesting because when I had the brain tumor and the surgery, all my memory was gone all the way back to the time I went to China, which I thought was very mysterious. And I
Wow.
wonder if something happened in China, and we were doing a lot of ministry. And, I
Mm.
don't know, I may never know that, but I just found it very interesting that memory, that was like 3 years of memory was just gone, but it was all the way back to that mission trip. So I'm wondering if
Wow.
something could have happened. Maybe I'll know, maybe I'll never know. But I do, you know what? I've noticed more and more the spiritual battle we have in the world. I really believe there's a battle, and I hope it's okay for me to say that on your show, between good and
Yeah.
evil.
Yes.
But I speak for groups, and there have been groups that I was preparing to speak for. Literally a week ahead of time, every single day, something would come up against me. And it would be
Mm.
something different every day. It could be a car problem, it could be an internet problem, it could be a health problem. And I remember one week, the last day, it was like every single day the light bulb went on, and I just said, I know what this is about. And my God is bigger than this. And I went on to speak, and it was one of the biggest talks I've
Wow.
ever given, and I feel it affected maybe more people. And it was very
Mm.
exciting, but something, and I know maybe not all of your listeners totally believe in this, but I really believe we have a battle, and we have to be aware of it and not let that beat us down, but to realize it's not just everyday things, that sometimes God has one plan and the enemy doesn't want that plan to happen.
Yeah, right. I mean, Ephesians 6 says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities of this world and rulers of darkness. I mean, we have to arm ourselves with our spiritual armor every day when we are getting ready to go out, to know, to protect our heart, to protect our mind, to protect our feet, to have our shield of faith and have our belt of truth to protect us from all the fiery things that could come against us, because it is definitely a spiritual battle. And I know exactly what you're saying. And I think when we walk, God is walking with us. I had back in June, I actually found a place where I had journaled it, but God woke me up. I mean, I was sleeping and I just, because I've been praying, I wanted to hear something from him. And so it was like a vision or a dream or a voice. And I heard him say, walk with me. So I got up, and I was walking around the house, and my husband's like, did you walk outside? I said, no, I was walking in the house. And then I started searching scriptures out. What does that really mean? What does God want me to do? How does he want me to walk with him? What is that walk like? And so I feel like everybody has a field of favor. You have a specific field of favor. You listening have a specific field of favor that you can help people in and through. You don't even know it. And I tell you what I do, Linda, is start with my family, because they're the closest to me. Who in my family needs help, needs the Lord, needs something, whatever their
That's
need is, and
great.
then branch out. The
That's great.
church, the community, my coworkers. I mean, it just really branches out. And I am a songwriter, and I started writing this song, Something's Moving in the Water. So I'm going to start working on that this month
Oh,
with the
that's
studio.
wonderful.
And it is about the ripples, the ripple effects that we make, for Jesus. We are those ripple effect. We just make one little splash, so one little seed, it is going to ripple out across multiple people and
Yes.
multiple generations,
Yes.
not just people, but the
And
generations.
I think too, the power of prayer, we have to realize how important the power of prayer is. My son is deployed right now in Djibouti, and it's so hard for me because he's kind of having a hard time. And I'm here long distance, and I'm praying, and I'm trying to encourage him. And I mailed him a big box of coffee, Keurig coffee today. But being so far away, I can pray. I need to pray and enlist other people to pray for him. And I know he's scheduled to go to a chaplain tomorrow, and pray for wisdom for that chaplain, because sometimes, when we're a long way from our family or friends, there's only so much we can do. But we know, I really am a believer that as we lift up and we encourage each other, it's just so, 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 so valuable, because nobody knows what anybody else is going through. And, when I used to do ballroom dancing and I would compete in ballroom dancing, and, for a while I was doing well, people thought of me as a different kind of person, but deep down inside, they had no idea what I had been through. And on my website, I was honored to receive a gift at one point, or an award for encouraging and inspiring other people. So I have that dance on my website, but most people don't have a clue what I've been through or what I fight through today, and how it's not easy. So we look at the outside and we think, oh, they look so great, they look attractive, and they have it made, and they don't have any idea what many of us are dealing with on the inside. So we tend to misjudge each other. And I think with women especially, we can be jealous of each other. Oh, she looks younger than I do, and they don't have any idea what we've had to fight through. But we all have different types of trials. And I think it's important as women, we encourage and we lift each other up. And I'm so glad you do this with your show, because, I listen to Christian radio. There seem to be a lot of shows where the men are speaking, but not a lot of shows really where the women are talking about women's issues. I think the issues you discuss have to do with everybody. But as women, we've got to stay together and be there to support each other. It's not true in every church, but I have just not always noticed that the women's ministries really bring women together in a way that we need to be, where we really pray for each other.
Yes, and thank you so much for saying that, because that is truly my heart's desire, is to lift others up, lift other women up, to know that they're not alone, and that there is a hope in the future, that they have a bigger vision for their life. Where you're at right now is not where you're going to be in 3 months or 3 years. You're going to be in a further better place. And I really appreciate you saying that. And I've just felt the spirit the whole time we've been talking. So
I'm so glad.
Yeah, so
I have too. And, it's just amazing how God, like you say, being there for everybody on a day-to-day basis. I recently called an airline to change a flight, and I talked to that lady for over an hour, but it was another Christian and she needed to talk. So we never know when we can minister just by being there and listening and maybe praying with another person, how much we can help them.
I know it. That was a God incident, not a coincidence, but a God
Yes.
incident. I love that. I have those myself when I talk to the airline people. Or other people. It's like I had a call tonight at 5, and it was about a totally different subject, but we went on a totally different direction. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. So you're right. People want to be heard. They want to be seen. They want to be validated. They want to feel like they matter, and they do. You do matter. If you're listening, you matter.
Yes.
Don't feel like you're less than. You're not. When people are dealing with their own self-esteem and their own struggles, they tend to project that out on others, and it's displaced anger, displaced self-esteem. And don't take that. Just be like a duck and just let it roll off, because that is their problem, their issues, not
That's
yours.
very true. That's very true. And I have worked a lot with women in the 20 years I counsel people, because I personally had low self-esteem growing up, and many times it's passed from generation to generation, not intentionally, but then you have to figure out how to overcome it. And I think I was in my 30s before I really overcame it. But many women, we need to realize what really, for me, made the hugest difference was, people can say you're one thing, but God says you're something else. And we all sin and fall short of God's glory. And people who've been abused or who've had low self-esteem do tend to pass that down to their children. But we need to listen to who God says we are. And that's the truth. That's the truth. We can get lies, or we can get untruths in our mind, but God's truth is something else. and we are valuable. He loves us so much. It says all our days are written in his book. And his thoughts towards us are greater than the sand on the seashore. And when we look at those scriptures that tell us what God says about us and we focus on those, it can bring healing to our own picture of our own self-worth.
Yes, it can. And we're fearfully and wonderfully made. We were made to create. We're made in his image. So we need to learn that. So this has been so wonderful. I mean, you definitely are a beautiful vision of sunlight. So
Thank
I
you.
love that you follow dance, because I always want to do that. I'm going to go find a class. Did your husband go with you? Tell me, how did you get him to go?
to a dance class?
Yeah.
Well, we started dancing about 15 years ago, but then I really loved it. And so then, he kind of let it go. And he has a little bit of physical disability with his knees right now. So, he can't, we do a little bit together, but unfortunately, he's just not able to at this point in time. I do it, I do everything from praise and worship dancing to a little bit of ballroom to a little bit of country. And I've cut back somewhat, but I just love to worship God just in my own home, just to certain songs, that I want to dance to. So I will always find a way, but I will always try to do a little bit of it because I really enjoy it.
That's so amazing. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story, your testimony, your mess turned into a message. Test turned into a testimony, and it is definitely reaching out. Your tentacles, your ripples are reaching out and helping others to realize there is hope. There is a way to make a way, and the way maker. You trust in the way maker, so they can do the same. And it's just your faith and belief. You keep on believing and having that faith and knowing from whence coming.
And I think not giving up. And I think one other thing I was going to say, it's not easy when it takes a while to get answers. But like I tell people, you're going through it, it doesn't make sense. But if you're just patient and you just persevere through it. And the chapter I wrote on perseverance talks about people and the same thing with God. If you have issues with God, it's okay, but you just keep going. And you realize that one day you're going to hear the answer. You're going to understand why. Maybe not at that moment in time, but God is faithful and he knows, and there's always a purpose. You may not see that purpose at that time. You may not understand it, but you just keep on going and you keep trusting and believing that will come, and it will come. I really believe 100%. And for me, was it easy? No, but sometimes God calls us to hard things, but it might not be about us. It might be about helping somebody else. And so we need to stay open about that, because I think we're always thinking, oh, it's about me, when it's not. And God may have a totally different plan, much bigger than what you could ever dream.
Yep, I agree. Well, going through this, is there one scripture that you held on to more than any? I mean, I know there's several, but is there one scripture that sticks out that you want to share?
Oh, well, it's hard to have one, but I mean, I could give you two. I always hang on to Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. And then the second part of that, a couple verses later, says that you will find him when you seek him with all of your heart. Many times we're just not seeking him with all of our heart. But my second scripture I have to share. It's really been the whole comeback of my life. 2 Corinthians 12:9. His power is perfected in my weakness. So when I'm weak, then I can be strong. Because there's been so many days that I just didn't have it. It had to be God, because I knew that I didn't have it, but he got me through day after day after day. And he was faithful in spite of my weakness.
I love that. And that is so true. He is our strength. We can lean on him and he will strengthen us. And I'm just so thankful for that hope. Like you said, we do have a hope in the future, and we just have to stand on the word. I mean, we speak the word. God spoke the word and it happened. When we speak the word, things are going to happen. There's a song, champion. You shout, those walls come down, and when you open your mouth, miracles break out. So we just have to remember there is power in our words, and power in our praise, and power in our faith.
Amen. Amen.
So tell us, where can our listeners find you?
Okay, well, I have a website. You can go to Linda, Linda, middle initial S, Plunkett, Plunkett.com. And you'll find videos, you'll find podcasts. There's information on the book there. The new book there, again, don't give up. If it's selling, it seems to be selling well right now, but the old book, if you can contact me via my email, hopeforhurting@aol.com, and you give me your information, I will make sure you get a copy of the old book, or better yet, I'd be happy to come and speak for your group and bring copies with me. And if I have a multitude of books, then I can discount those books as well. But probably, the website, I would say, is the best way to reach me. And
Okay. And your email's on there. They can contact you through your email.
Yes.
Okay.
And that should probably be the best way, I'm thinking. I was giving my phone number out, but I've gotten so many phone calls, and I continue to get so many. And a lot of it is people trying to sell me things. I published 2 books, and they keep trying to sell me more publishing deals. Well, God called me to write the second book. So far, He hasn't called me to write another book yet, but I have been barraged with phone calls. So yeah, I would just prefer you use my email, or go on the website and get information from the website.
That sounds great. And we'll definitely remember your son in prayer. As
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I really
we will.
appreciate that.
So thank you again today. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to this miraculous testimony. And tune in next week for our next episode.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you for joining us today on the 360 Network for Women and Real Heart Talk podcast. We're so happy you could join and hope you stay tuned for the next episode.